Hey everybody, I wanted to make a video today that's not related to Cardano directly, but it is actually related to our movement as a whole. And it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And it's a topic a little different from a normal cryptocurrency video in that it's about propaganda and the effects of propaganda and the flow of information. The reason why this is relevant to us as an industry is that these systems, once they're no longer curated by a collection of founders or founding entities, are actually curated by democratic processes, which means each and every user of the system has to have an opinion about the system, what it does, where it's going to go. And as with all functioning democracies, we make this assumption that people are, open up my whiteboard, rational, and that people are able to take some sort of input and that they're able to then reason about it. So if we talk about an isolated society for new information that no one has ever seen or heard before, this is probably a somewhat reasonable thing. Like, for example, when a student is studying mathematics, that's not a very politicized topic, and it's something that people are fairly comfortable following some sort of dedicated approach and keep skeptical mind and telling you what you don't understand, et cetera, et cetera. So you have some sort of expression, you can evaluate that. The problem is that we live in a society due to mass media where people are propagandized. We are all, in our own ways, victims of propaganda. And unfortunately, this forces us to start exhibiting some patterns, which are pretty dangerous. And wherever I see them, I do point them out. So many of you know that I have a Twitter feed. And that is a personal Twitter feed. So I do share Cardano-related news because 90% of the time I'm working on Cardano. So if I'm expressing what I'm working on or my personal opinion, 9 times out of 10, I'm having an opinion about crypto or Cardano. And about 10% of the time, I will tweet something, an article, a video, and then people who like it are like, wow, you're amazing and enlightened. And then people don't like it say, stick to blockchain. You don't know anything. Charles, I love you, but I cannot believe you've been swayed by the evil side. And so in the United States, we have Team Red and we have Team Blue. And one of the points of this video is to tell you that they're no different. They appear to be different. They say different things, but they end up doing the same things. You see, I've been through the effects of propaganda twice. Once as a member of the Ron Paul campaign, and once dealing with cryptocurrencies in general and the media's response to Bitcoin. So in 2007, when I was working with the Ron Paul campaign as a volunteer, we had a platform with 3 pillars on it. It was a very simple platform, very understandable, and it was bipartisan. So we said maximize personal liberty by following the Constitution. We wanted a humble foreign policy and sound money. That's pretty much it. So follow Constitution, sound money, and humble foreign policy. Those are 3 pillars. Why? Because in 2007, for 6 years, since September 11th, we watched a lot of our constitutional rights erode. And in fact, in many ways, our industry, our campaign predicted the spy state and was aware of the spy state that Snowden revealed. Second, we'd noticed that our national debt had gone from $4 trillion to nearly doubled. And at the time, I wish we could go back to $9–10 trillion national debt. But we were really concerned that the dollar just couldn't sustain being basically debased on a daily basis. And then finally, a humble foreign policy. We had all these wars we went to, in particular Iraq, where the reasons for that war were basically just made up. And there was a lot of evidence that people knew what they were saying were lies, like Colin Powell's UN speech, for example. So he said, maybe we shouldn't go to war on lies. Maybe we should try to follow this constitutional document, not ignore it on a regular basis. And maybe our money shouldn't be so bad. And that was basically the philosophical core of the campaign. Now, Paul was never meant to be president. We all knew that. But that wasn't what it was about. It was about having that conversation and saying, why are these bad things? And let's discuss where we should deviate from them. Because for a long time we have been, and at some point we're going to face the consequences of this. We have blood on our hands. Our money will become worthless. And if we allow our constitutional rights just to disappear, then what's to stop us from devolving into a tyranny? And you know what happened? Something called the Tea Party formed. And in the beginning, the Tea Party was bipartisan. There was as many Democrats as there were Republicans, and the unifying feature was they were fed up. But then you know what happened? Paul, because he's not the best of leaders, allowed the Tea Party to be co-opted, and the Tea Party stopped talking about sound money, following the Constitution and a humble foreign policy, and they started talking about banning gay marriage, and started talking about abortion, and started talking about how bad Team Blue was. You know what that means? They were propagandized. And unfortunately, this whole campaign kind of went away, and everything we were trying to do went away. Now, those of you on the other side of the political spectrum may remember Occupy Wall Street. And Occupy Wall Street was asking a very simple question, which was, why is it that nobody went to jail? We had the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. And all these bankers who made hundreds of millions of dollars and got bailouts suffered no personal consequences and still have jobs, or are nice and retired and will have jobs again. And everyday people got devastated. And we elected this president who's supposedly outside of the normal political order. And he's got a supermajority, so he has 60 senators and a supermajority in Congress, meaning no veto is possible, no filibustering is possible. He could, on a party line vote, do whatever he wants, and he just seemed not concerned at all about putting any of these people in jail. So, you know what we're going to do is we're just going to say, screw the system, let's change it. And they had huge protests. They filled Wall Street, hundreds of thousands of people across the United States, saying we demand some sort of political event to have a discussion about the way our markets work and about the unfairness of things. And again, it was completely ineffective. Really nothing was done. A lot of well-intended people, a lot of good questions were asked. It got co-opted and destroyed by our good friend propaganda. All right, so then Bitcoin comes around in 2009, and this is the ultimate media counterinformation campaign. I have seen so many things said about Bitcoin during my career in this industry. 9 years in the space, 7 years professionally. And what have I seen? I have seen things like only for drugs. I have seen things like will die by X. Prominent economist Y says Z about Bitcoin, and Z is always negative. Okay? Overwhelmingly negative articles mocking us, from Stephen Colbert making videos about how we're incomprehensible, to basically everybody just saying that we're just a bunch of criminals, to an overemphasis on certain actors who had only very small influence, like Silk Road, for example, and Mt. Gox. So for now, since 2009, for all the people who have been aboard this train for 11 years, and myself for 7 years, I've had to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. And even today, I see people who have irrational opinions about cryptocurrency. They don't really understand it. And then when that narrative wasn't working, you know what happened? Well, they changed the narrative in 2017. You'll get rich. And of course, the media knew, and I knew they knew because they told me, and there was not a single person in 2017 when I did an interview in 2017 on the financial press side that didn't believe we were in a bubble. Yet they talked about in 2017 about how everybody's getting rich with cryptocurrencies. Why? Well, they talked about that because knew a collapse was coming. And once the collapse comes, all of a sudden, all these middle-class people, poor people who bought crypto thinking that they were going to get rich, basically got broke. They lost 90% of their value. So maybe that will sour public sentiment about cryptocurrencies. But it didn't work. Perplexing as it is, apparently people just stuck with it. So this is the first time as a movement that I've been involved in a movement or knew of a movement that's happened in my political lifetime where we didn't get co-opted and we didn't get propagandized out of existence. Bitcoin seems to be pretty resilient about all of this. And what are we really doing here? You see, what we're doing here is we're asking fundamental questions about the nature of governance in society. This has nothing to do with money. 2017, they tried to make it about money to try to get a lot of people to get poor because they knew a bubble was going to burst. And before that, they tried to make it about drugs, they being the professional media class and people who talked about Bitcoin in the public circles. It was almost always derogatory. In fact, people even kept websites about how many times Bitcoin dies, how many proclamations that Bitcoin is about to die. And they still push Peter Schiff, Bitcoin's going to zero, or Rubini, or whatever the expert of the week happens to be. But the fundamentals about society in general. Okay, you, if you live in a democracy, get to vote. You, if you live in a free market, you have property. You, if you live in a free country, have rights, and those rights are generally written in some sort of constitution. You, if you live in a free society, you have money, and you own that money, or at least the government claims you do, and you'd like to believe it behaves by predictable rules, or else why the hell are you trading your products and services for it? Why are you trading your life for it? Why do you have a job? These types of things, okay? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all of these things, unless you lived through the collapse of the Soviet Union or something like that, you probably didn't have a single decision point on or vote on. In fact, probably you inherited it. Okay? You were born into this system. You didn't get to choose this particular configuration. You were born into this configuration, and you just have to accept the country that you were born into, how these things work. Some are very, very good about rule of law. Other ones couldn't care less about it. So what we are doing is saying, wait a minute here. We did not consent to this concept of a global economy. It is an emergent property of better communication, better travel, education, and being able to understand each other. Okay, so all these nations which have a particular opinion about this, which you may or may not have had any ability to influence, are suddenly now working with each other. And what they're doing is they're building a giant global governance framework. World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, this organization, the IMF, the Bank of International Settlement. There's hundreds of these transnational organizations that exist. And they have an opinion about how commerce should be done, how money should work, how property rights should work, how people should express themselves or not express themselves. And you don't get to decide any of that. These are all being decided by people who were never voted into power or were not voted to decide these types of things. And this has been happening for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades without fail. Okay? So there's a whole order with this global economy. And this order has proven time and again not to really care so much about individual liberty. It cares more about stability. And it doesn't care so much about human rights. It doesn't care so much about human life, just cares about stability and preservation of power of the particularly large nation states. And what's my evidence for that? Well, we have hundreds of examples of it. Just to use a few, look at the malaria epidemic. It's a very cheap epidemic to treat. In fact, for the amount of money that we spend on male pattern baldness research, we probably could eradicate malaria. But for some reason, the world order doesn't want to come together and cure a disease that's killed more people than pretty much any other except for influenza. Another example of coordination. All the time we see genocide happen. The Nuba people in Sudan, terrible events in Congo, all throughout the world. Where is the world order to save them? They're just absent, absolutely absent. No one seems to care about them. The same with all the atrocities in Southeast Asia. Again and again and again and again. Hundreds of examples where basically people who don't have economic value for this global order, for some reason they just get ignored. And basically this means millions of people die. I don't need to belabor the point. It's been around for a long time. And when I bring it up, people say, oh, well, that's because life isn't fair. But here's the great contradiction of where we are at. So right now, 184 countries, 184 countries currently have COVID. Now, COVID-19, I've spoken about before. It is a disease. HIV is a disease. Influenza is a disease. There are many diseases out there, more than we can count, more than we can know about. We discover new ones all the time. New ones are created all the time through evolution. Okay, so we have 184 countries that have this disease, and it's new. So we do not fully understand a bunch of stuff about it. We don't understand the transmissibility of it, so that are not. If you get it, how many people you're going to spread it to. We don't understand the case fatality rate. We don't understand treatments yet. Okay, we do not have a vaccine for it. We're developing one, but we don't. Okay, there's all kinds of things, yada, yada, yada. Is it durable when temperatures go high? In other words, is it seasonality? How long does it live on surfaces? Because it's new, we don't fully appreciate or understand these things yet. Okay, so we also don't know how many people have been infected. How many people have antibodies for it? Great, we don't understand that. So it's perfectly reasonable when you have a completely new disease that is impacting 184 countries to try as quickly as possible to understand these things. The transmissibility, the case fatality rate, to understand where we're at with vaccines, to understand where we're at with treatments. And then based upon that, you create a risk profile. Because here's the reality about life. Stuff is risky. You get in a car, you get in a taxi. John Nash got in a taxi coming back from receiving a prize. He and his wife both died because of an accident. I knew Nash. He was a good man. So everything we do, from the food we eat, which could be poisoned or contaminated by accident or on purpose, to getting in a car, there is a chance of death. Just going outside and getting sunlight, getting a sunburn, gives you a chance of getting skin cancer at some point. Everything you do carries the risk profile, and some are small and some are large. For example, if you smoke, over a long period of time, you're creating a large risk of a bad outcome, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, et cetera, and more susceptibility to opportunistic infections for those who smoke, for example, pneumonia. So if you smoke and you get interstitial pneumonia, much higher chance of being ventilated and dying. It's actually what's killing a lot of people in Italy, a lot of that obese smoking class. Okay, so we make these decisions every single day. Now, when we understand something, for example, not COVID, but let's say driving, apparently there's no political urgency or debate. Whatever your rules for your society happen to be, these rules here, those fundamentals that you live in, society just goes with it. Okay? Even if you have a high risk profile, kills lots of people, 50, 60,000 people per year, including friends of mine. But when apparently we're unknown, this right here, this is being treated so differently that here's what we're doing in the United States of America right now, without debate, and I'm not even allowed to debate it, and I'm a conspiracy theorist and an evil human being if I even have the audacity to say anything about it. We have suspended the Constitution. And you say, oh, you're just a crazy loon. Well, I don't have freedom of association anymore. I can't go and talk to people, can't go outside anymore. It's a crime for me to go outside. Don't have that, not allowed to do that. So that's there. Freedom of religion. People can't congregate and actually practice their religion. That's a crime. And you can go down the list. Constitutional right after constitutional right. They say for the greater good, because this thing is so dangerous and will kill so many people. We're just going to freeze up the entire economy. Apparently, we don't have freedom of any commerce anymore. The government is now taking over, nationalizing parts of our economy. They told all of our businesses they have to close, and now they're subsidizing them with money printed out of thin air. So we've printed $6 trillion out of thin air, and we'll get to that. We've suspended the Constitution. There's now a state-sponsored economy because of the Defense Production Act. And again, more and more stuff with the ability, the option to escalate. No democratic process. We had DNA for our society. Our highest law was the Constitution. And overnight, it basically does not matter. This disease apparently takes precedent over it. And if you have any audacity to question this, you deny science, you're anti-science, you just want a lot of people to die. Originally, they tried this mass media to say that it was old people, you hate old people. That wasn't so politically effective. So now the new narrative is you're racist and you want black people to die or Mexicans to die because they're disproportionately impacted by that. We'll talk about that in a second. The $6 trillion, as I mentioned, how much money is that? Well, take the entire national debt from every single U.S. president, from George Washington to Bill Clinton, this is more. If you print out of thin air enough money to give every single American under the age of 55 who makes less than $100,000, $2,000 a month, just free, universal basic income. This is 5 times more money than that. They just printed it out of thin air. Did you vote on it? No. Are you going to endure the implications of it? Yes. Was there any major debate about it? Well, Team Blue was really concerned about things like, well, can we get diversity on corporate boards, and can we make sure we fund alternative energy and some part of the Green New Deal? So they didn't really care at all about printing the money. And Team Red said, well, we got a red guy here, we got to support the red team, so we're not even going to discuss it or debate it. Everybody who does that just wants people to die. So this is our current reaction, and reaction where we do not understand the transmissibility, we do not understand the case fatality rate, so we have no idea where on the risk spectrum it sits. We are starting to get early evidence that we have plenty of treatments available, and by the end of this month, or certainly by the end of May, we'll probably have 2 or 3 treatments that are good. Treatment for ARDS has improved more in 3 months than it has the last 10 years. So if you get it today, your chances of dying from it today are lower, because we know more and we know how to treat you. Within 2 months, significantly lower when we have better drugs, perhaps remdesivir, perhaps others. And we're well on our way to vaccine. In fact, there's even people saying that in Q4 for certain at-risk populations, if the safety and efficacy trials are cleared, they will be available, certainly by Q1 of 2021. So apparently, while this is a problem, it's not the Spanish flu, but we can do this stuff. And if you dare to challenge it, you're a horrible human being, and shame on you. And apparently you're a racist Nazi. It's what MSNBC is basically saying. Confederate flag waving Nazi. They physically use these words for anybody who has the audacity. And what are the human consequences of suspending all this stuff? Well, 30 million Americans have lost their jobs. If you go to New York City, I love New York City, go there often, eat at Smith & Walensky. I go smoke cigars at the Carnegie Club. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to visit. There are 20,000 restaurants in New York City. Half will go out of business. That's the estimate I've seen about this. Half. 20,000. And overnight, we lose half of our restaurants. But you say, but Charles, this was the only way. We would have all been devastated. Everything would have come to an end. What about Sweden? They chose a different model. They looked at these things and said, there's not enough evidence here to justify destroying our entire economy. Let's leave it open. And let's do common sense things. In Asia, I spent a lot of time there. I used to live in Japan. They wear masks. Why? Started for air pollution, but then there was a different reason. If you are sick in Asia, you wear a mask to avoid spreading your illness to other people. Common sense, right? The WHO and the CDC for months wavered on this. We don't know. Maybe you should wear a mask. Maybe you shouldn't. And we're not even talking about an N95 mask. We're talking about just a cloth mask. They sell them at 7-Elevens and Family Marts and other convenience stores in Japan. They're mass market. Basic thing like that, and washing your hands. And they said, well, if we can do this stuff, social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands, let's do that. And let's wait until we have an antibody test, because then we can understand the transmissibility and the case fatality rate. The country of the Netherlands, they started mass testing people, and they're getting an antibody test. And looky here, 3% of the population has antibodies. What does that mean? It means that it has transferred to many, 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 many more people. And as a consequence, a lot of those people had mild to no symptoms at all. That's just a fact. When you have 3% of your population have an antibody for something, they've gotten it. They've been exposed to it. And that means if they didn't show up at a hospital, they weren't ventilated, they didn't have a bad time, they didn't even know that they had it, or they said, I had the sniffles, I didn't think it was coronavirus because everybody was telling me this is the plague of our time. That means that it's far less lethal for certain groups, especially the young, than we'd think. And in every country with a high CFR, there is overrepresentation of a certain patient group. Those who have lots of comorbidities over the age of 55, who are obese or have smoked. That's the profile. Those people, the CFR is huge. It's over 5%. The case fatality rates. How many people die if they contract it? However, if you look at the young, United States, for example, we have not lost millions of young people. While young people can certainly contract it and have a hard time with it, the CFR for the young is extremely low. Even amongst those tested, we're looking at less than 0.1% for the young, so people under the age of 40. These are just the facts that we know. And as we begin more antibody testing, and we actually begin more pervasive surveillance, we're getting more accurate data. It's been going on for a little while. So the people who are supposed to protect us, the WHO and the CDC, they told us not to do the one thing that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And they completely missed the whole point of it. They said, oh, well, the mask won't prevent you from getting sick. That wasn't the point. The mask prevents people who are sick from contaminating surfaces, their hands and other places. It lowers transmissibility, and it's something they do in Asia and have done in Asia for an incredibly long period of time, decades. Common sense. 3 things you could do. Sweden didn't shut down their entire economy, and they're probably going to come out the other side a lot stronger. Oh, well, look, we did in the United States without any debate at all, did all these things without any debate at all, and half the restaurants in New York are going to lose. 30 million Americans are on unemployment now that were not on unemployment before. We've printed $6 trillion. This is an economic catastrophe. So what's the media's response to all of this that I dare question and I get brutalized over Twitter for? If you're on Team Blue, there are only two narratives that are acceptable. Trump is evil, and he's got blood on his hands. And then the other narrative is society is racist. That's the new one. If you deviate at all from these two narratives, then you cannot be on Team Blue. You must be a member of Team Red, and we've already decided Team Red is evil. Okay? That's the propagandized narrative. People are incapable of thinking for themselves. Trump is evil. Why? Oh, because he didn't act fast enough. And I posted an exposition that Hannity did. Now, I'm not a Hannity fan. He's a propagandist, and he's clearly a member of Team Red. But as a propagandist, he's an expert in the production of propaganda and recognizing propaganda and noticing malleable narratives. And so he put together a beautiful expose on basically Team Blue saying the same thing that Sweeten said, that this is not very serious right now. Don't worry about it. Quote after quote after quote after quote. You know, they keep saying, oh, we should social distance. We shouldn't meet together. And then they're aggregating, holding rallies, not talking about it. Quote after quote after quote after quote. Okay? And what was the point of that? Well, he was doing it because there was a slanderous, really disgusting article in the New York Times that was basically saying that they have blood on their hands. Hannity's guilty of killing people, just like apparently those people who take fish tank cleaner for hydroxychloroquine. It's all Trump's fault. He killed those people. He forced fish tank cleaner down their throat. It's a lie. It's disingenuous. Okay? But my point was to say, look here, narrative is malleable. Basically, on this debate, everybody has been on every side. Trump didn't take it seriously. It's very clear. He was playing golf and other things. He took some actions. He shut travel down from one country, this, that, and the other. The Team Blue didn't take it seriously either. No one took it seriously until suddenly, not only did we have to take it seriously, it's the greatest event in 100 years. This is bigger than a war. It's going to kill millions of Americans. We all have to react now. And then, of course, let no tragedy go to waste. Team Blue said, oh, this is a great opportunity to rally our base to win a political victory. And it's a great opportunity to push a particular agenda we have about the structure of society and our beliefs about society. And why are they saying it's racist? Because a disproportionate amount of minorities are impacted by this. They acquire this disease. Why? Because they tend to work jobs that they can't work at home. They tend to work in societies where they're closer together, so they can't social distance as well as other people. By the way, shutting the entire economy down doesn't really solve that problem for them, because what you're doing instead is you're saying, hey, if we shut the whole economy down, if we look at those 20,000 restaurants in New York that are now impacted and completely destroyed, the vast majority of those restaurants are actually owned by minorities. So when we go to 10,000, is that rich white people who are losing their jobs or other people? The other people. And those other people, they're just going to stop working. They're all going to stay at home. They need to feed their families. They're still going to go outside and still work. So yes, it's exposed inequality in society, but it has nothing to do with racism. Disease is not racist. It's just how society is currently structured. And thanks for pointing that out, Team Blue. Is that really necessary right now? Shouldn't every single person, Team Blue, be looking at these things, getting accurate numbers so we actually understand? Looks like we have promising treatments. There's a lot of evidence about hydroxychloroquine, but no, we can't like that because a particular person likes it. We have to like something else, like remdesivir, which is on patent, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of money if it comes out, and only one company can make it. So it's just, I just watch this and I point things out saying, guys, your opinions you have are not your own. No one is having a fact-based conversation about this. If we were, here's what the American people would be demanding. It would not be a debate of reopen or close it down. It would be saying, get the facts. I want to know the case fatality rate. I want to know How many people have already gotten this? I want to know the R naught. I want to know these things. And every dollar we should be spending should be towards getting these values. For personal protective equipment, it was a big thing in the media, the controlled media, where they said that we're going to be in a situation in the United States where people who need a ventilator won't have one, and we'll have to take grandma off a ventilator to give a younger person a ventilator, make these hard choices. Didn't happen. It was a lie. And they said, no, well, PPE, we just don't have enough PPE. The U.S. medical system, know the system very well. Family's been in medicine for 60 plus years. The U.S. medical system is the most wasteful system in the world. If you go to Africa and you're treating Ebola in Congo, if you go to Africa, you're dealing with Ebola in Sierra Leone, probably the deadliest disease mankind knows if you contract it. They reuse their PPE. They clean it and reuse it. That's the one disease you really, really probably should throw your PPE away. That and prions. Those are the two things that you really need to throw away. But they reuse it. In the United States, we throw away the glove after every exam. So we have this big debate about the availability and supply chain of PPE, and hospitals had switched to just-in-time purchasing. So instead of stockpiling it, they buy it as needed. So that presupposes no disruptions in your supply chains. States and the federal government never prioritized the acquisition of PPE, and nobody bothered to think of PPE as a renewable resource and to bother to develop equipment to sterilize and allow people to reuse it, which would considerably reduce the consumption of PPE. But no, now there was this narrative in the media, PPE shortage, we're all going to die, we don't have enough PPE, how dare, we need to nationalize all of America's manufacturing capacity. Everybody who can make something has to be basically turned into a state-sponsored corporation for the next, 6 months to make sure we can secure our supply chain of PPE. Absolutely extraordinary to me. So instead of getting the facts to really understand how bad this thing actually is, we didn't do that. No emphasis on it. No, we have to talk about how we're not going to have ventilators and we're all going to die from that. We have to talk about how we just have a huge shortage of PPE. And it's true, yeah, we do have a shortage of PPE in certain places because of historic decisions that were made. And we're working through those historic decisions that were made. And we're working through those consequences, the just-in-time ordering systems, the inability for states and the federal government to stockpile. And the other thing is just hoarding. A lot of people around the United States, hospitals, individuals, corporations, they have stockpiles of these things, and the left hand's not talking to the right hand, no communication. Now, I wonder, what do we have to mass communicate to people and inform people and try to let people know what's going on? Oh, I don't know. We have this thing called the media. Maybe they could do something about it. No, they don't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about how this guy's evil and society is racist. And of course, Team Red, here's the problem that Team Red has. They want to win an election too. And they say, God, when you have mass unemployment, a collapsed economy, the incumbent party tends not to win re-election. Look at Herbert Hoover in 1932 on the back of the Great Depression. Not so good for your political chances. So what's Team Red trying to do? Well, yeah, in the beginning, Team Red tried to say, along with a lot of other people, this was not a big deal, and it's not going to impact things. And now that it is a big deal, they're trying to reopen the economy because they basically don't want people to lose their jobs. They want a V-shaped recovery. And that might be perfectly reasonable. We just don't know because we don't have the facts. And Team Red doesn't seem very interested in getting the facts. No mass antibody tests. We should do random sampling in every community in America as soon as available. We should have the ability to do 100 million of these tests. And if we do them very rapidly, we'd actually understand the real transmissibility, the real case fatality rate. Not happening. You see, so this is just a long-term expose into the insanity of the current situation that we live in. Basic things like, can we get protective equipment and reuse it? Basic things like, can we get the facts? Basic things like, who's impacted and who's not? Basic things like, what problem are we actually trying to solve? Are completely ignored. And instead it's, let's push our agenda again and again. Let's ignore it or minimalize it so that we can try to salvage our election chances. And I point these things out from time to time because they impact me, they impact you, they impact the entire world. And also, guys, after September 11th, when we moved the chains way back here, we started a movement to say we should move them back. Not let's go back to the founding fathers. Paul wanted to do that, but maybe we should just, go back to the 90s because the crisis is averted. All the people who did these horrible things are dead or hiding in caves and no longer relevant. And we were basically co-opted and destroyed for that. And so now we stand here with a much more significant act, a much greater act, where massive amounts of money has been printed, more than we've ever seen in the history of humanity. You have states taking over factories of production. Hungary suspended things. If you challenge the government, you can be thrown into jail. Protesters are being thrown into jail for violating stay-at-home orders. How much of that do you think is just go back to normal after all of this is said and done? The watchdogs who are supposed to say, okay, this is a temporary, finite thing, have no interest at all in the consequences of this. They rather want to push two particular narratives or more, and the other team is more than happy of taking advantage of this situation or trying to preserve power. This is not a Democrat-Republican thing, a team red, team blue thing. This is all about what I talked about, our industry as a whole. What are our rights? Voting, property, rights, money, all these things, the fundamentals of society. How should we run things? This global order has proven they don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about the truth. The media doesn't care to hold them accountable for anything. They really don't. There is very good evidence that this disease probably came from a lab. Any person who even says that immediately is accused of being a conspiracy theorist. And said, oh, well, no, China would never release this on the world. It's not what I said. Accidents happen. Things get leaked. Look at 3 Mile Island. Look at Chernobyl. Institutions all the time fail, and cover-ups all the time happen. There was an enormous cover-up about this in November, in December, in January. And that was precious time the world had to get the facts, to understand if we actually needed to close our economy or not. But instead, it was covered up. You figure that investigative journalists would love to bring truth to power and expose things and really deeply look into this. But they don't want to for some reason, because it's inconvenient to this global order. It has nothing to do with the orange man bad narrative in our country, and globally speaking, it has nothing to do with the particular agendas of those corporate interests. And so the greatest event of my lifetime, the most damaging economic event of all of our lifetimes, perhaps even more than the Great Depression, we're not even allowed to ask about the origin. How dare we? So these people, they don't care at all about our rights. They don't care at all about what individual nations have to say about things. And this is the sole reason why I still am in the blockchain industry. This is the sole reason why I tweet about these things and talk about these things. I want to rewrite the rules. You see, the basis of our cryptocurrency, Cardano, is the scientific method. Okay? That's the basis, this concept of professional skepticism. And it's not that complicated. We've all seemed to have forgotten the scientific method. You start with something you see, and you have a question that you want to answer. Then you say, okay, well, has anybody done or said anything about this? Let's write down all the things that we see. Let's observe it. Then you have a hypothesis. Why is this happening? And then you say, well, I need to verify the thing I think is true. Let's conduct an experiment. Oh, well, then let's observe the experiment and interpret the results. And then let's go and tell the world about it. There you go. So you question, you research, you have a hypothesis, you conduct an experiment, you observe, you create some results, and then you go and tell the world. So everything that we do with these systems, we try to follow that basic model, that basic pattern. And we do this for protocol design. But that's ultimately protocols about society, which just means I have to have a political opinion. I have to decide what is a fair voting system. And my decisions are based upon observations and research and experimentation and outcomes. That's simple. And this is not academic. We are building a voting system. We are thinking about creating vouchers for millions of farmers. We're doing lending, figuring out how that stuff works, figuring out how stable coins work. We're figuring out about the flow of information and the curation of information. There's dozens of projects or ideas or things that are floating around that are directly related to the systems that we're working on. And the entire point of these things is to make them fair and resilient and to push power to you, the edges, and to create immutable rules. So remember that Constitution, it says it's our highest law in the United States. You can't tinker with it for inconvenient reasons. Apparently, we can just throw it away whenever we want. And if you desire, you're an evil racist that wants people to die, if you have any desire to talk about that, to say that that's wrong, well, guess what? Honey Badger doesn't care. The rules don't care. The whole point of our industry is to build systems that even if they're inconvenient or their operation may result in the death of people, they will still run. Just like the laws of physics. No one has ever called the laws of physics unfair. They are what they are. We have to accept them. We have to learn how to live with them. And these are synthetic laws of physics. So we know what the rules are and they're consistent, even if that consistency is inconvenient to certain actors in this global economy who want to fuck us for their own personal benefit. And these systems only work if you guys and gals are able to think for yourselves. As I began this entire video, I said, rational actors. You get an input, you can reason about that input. We've been through a lot here. There's been a hell of a journey on this video. A lot of stuff has happened. And in the very beginning, when COVID came out, I got emails about it as early as December, especially from people in the intelligence community, old friends. And they said, Charles, this thing has the potential to cause some disruption. We're not getting accurate information out of China. And I said, okay, well, that's problematic. So then I went and looked at what the institutions said. At that time, the institutions told me, and they said, well, yeah, human-to-human transmission is unlikely. This actually came from the WHO, and it's all contained. And I was thinking, okay, well, do I have any history that research after observation in the scientific method? And I said, yeah, the 2003 SARS epidemic. In 2003 SARS, it burned out. And then I called my dad, domain expert. He lived through that. He was a doctor. I said, what do you think about that? And he said, oh, it's probably going to be like avian flu or swine flu or SARS. These things have great potential and everybody worries about them, but it's going to burn out. Okay, that was my initial input. Then observations happen, facts happen, things happen. And I started realizing, oh, okay, this is probably going to be bigger. What do we need to do about it? We just don't know enough to be able to have a coordinated response, and people need to work together. Rational people would have said, let's, on a global scale basis, talk about creating antibody tests, rapid testing, getting our PPE stockpiles in order, and making sure that everybody has what they need. Didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. So a simple thought process, the scientific method could walk you through this entire thing. And at the end of the day, we can, because we reason about it, make fact-based, data-based decisions about what we're going to do. And in many cases, admit we're wrong and change our opinion. Beginning, I didn't take this very seriously because the inputs that I had told me it's not going to be that bad and it's going to blow over like the 2003 SARS. Later on, as I witnessed more things, got more data, I realized it has the potential to be more serious. And I wrote an email to my entire company about that. And then later on, I realized that, okay, what they're telling me is millions of people could die from this. It probably will. We'll probably see over 1 million dead by the time it's all said and done, especially when it hits the most vulnerable amongst us. But nowhere in that did it ever once justify this response, suspending the entire economy, printing $6 trillion out of thin air, taking over American businesses. This should have been debated. And we should have, before we did any of it, had clear criteria of how we're getting in and how we're getting out. But it just happened. And everybody just let it happen because they don't really care too much about it. So this is a case study on how public opinion can be manipulated, a case study on how you don't actually have control right now, how the things you were born into, these things right here, probably aren't actually the way that they were claimed, and that at any time, all your rights can be taken away or co-opted. I've personally witnessed the co-opting myself, 2007. I also saw it with Occupy Wall Street. I think that was 2011. And I've witnessed it every single day in the cryptocurrency space, changing narratives basically to preserve power, regardless of whether that's good or bad for you. And now we're here. And we are turning these systems on. Myself, Tezos, all these other guys. And yes, they do have opinions on all these things. And yes, long term, we're going to be able to run an entire economy on them, businesses on them, governments on them, if we want to. And these will only work if you are informed and rational and able to make decisions for yourself. So when I tweet about political topics, it's not because I am on Team Red or Team Blue. It's not because I think Orange Man is bad or that Orange Man is the savior of humanity. It's not because I support the globalist agenda or I'm an Alex Jones tinfoil hat wearing anti-globalist. It's because I want you guys to think for yourself. Think for yourself. There are numerous books on critical thinking, numerous books on applying the scientific method to your day-to-day life, and tons of biases that you can learn about. Confirmation bias, negativity bias, availability bias. There's all kinds of cognitive fallacies that we have. Our inability to understand exponential growth and statistics. And if you train your mind, then you will be able to overcome all of this. You will be able to filter out the bullshit and not be propagandized. As a final point, here's a test, and then I'll end this rant. If you find yourself on some topic that you don't actually know a lot about, and by the way, look up Dunning-Kruger. It's a real thing. But if you find yourself on a topic that you don't know a lot about, you're not informed about it, and you have an input, somebody talks about that topic, and then suddenly you have this violent emotional reaction, positive or negative. You probably are the victim of propaganda. Somebody inserted that violent emotional reaction into you through mass media or indoctrination or religion, whatever the hell it is. But if you don't know a lot about a topic, why would you feel so strongly about one position or the other position, which you can't even defend in the presence of facts or counterargument? If you find yourself unable to listen to people on the other side of your particular set of beliefs, you probably are the victim of propaganda. That's how you're controlled. People tell you you have a voice, but then they take your voice away with propaganda. And I need you to get out of that, to think for yourself. Train your brain, understand what cognitive fallacies are, understand how to think critically, understand the scientific method, how to test things, how to react to new information. systems I'm building, they push power to the edges. There's no president. There's no governor. There's no CEO. There's no leader. It's you. And if you are incapable of consuming information and deciding whether it's true or not, whether the facts support evidence or not, the facts produce evidence and support your hypothesis, you can't critically think, these systems are dangerous for you. That's why the global order is the way it is. That's why everything's structured the way it is. A small group of people developed an opinion that you cannot think for yourself, and as a consequence, it's dangerous to give you power. So, in the olden days, they just took it from you explicitly, either through religion or total totalitarianism. They just said, God needs me to take your power from you. Or they said, I'm king. I have the power. Because you thinking for yourself, we don't have social systems that can support that. It's dangerous. Now they say you have the power, but then they take it from you by propagandizing you and robbing you of your ability to actually understand reality so that they can continue operating with all of that power, but now perniciously with your consent. And we have apparently given consent to shutting down 184 countries. We've apparently given consent to suspending in the United States our constitutional rights, nationalizing our businesses, printing more money by a factor of 5 than what UBI would give to our people if we just started freely handing out money, and throwing 30 million people into unemployment. And if you dare challenge it, you get crushed in the system. Why I'm in Bitcoin is because when Bitcoin got hit by this media machine, we pushed back and we won, and we keep winning. So that means that there's something magical about what we have here. There's something really special about what we have here. And it's only going to work long term if you can keep it running and you're actually able to think for yourself and you're actually able to sort your way through all this stuff. So that's why I share political tweets. That's why I comment on these things. It's not an endorsement. I'm not on Team Red. I'm not on Team Blue. I'm just asking you to think for yourself. And I'm telling you, use this test in your own life. Really objectively look at it. Look at any topic that's been politicized or has the potential to be politicized and ask yourself, am I having these strong emotions for some reason, negative or positive or otherwise, about this topic that I don't know too much about? And as an exercise, for whatever you believe in, take the opposite belief, the other side of that opinion, and listen to at least one person talk about it. And ask yourself, if I was a supporter of this, what would I say to support it? Well, give yourself the best attempt to support it. If you find you can't do that, and you have these things, that's a great test for you being the victim of propaganda. So it's a plea, guys. We need to get there. I'm turning all these things on in Cardano, and these things move so quickly. When I entered the cryptocurrency space, we were nothing. And 7 years is really not that long of a time. It really isn't. You know, I old friend of mine I met in college. When I met his kids, they were 2 years old. Now they're, let's see here, 18 and 19. It's like time goes so fast. And in a blink of the eye, these systems will be fully formed and at the scale of billions of people. I don't want to see them turn into the 2007 Ron Paul movement, where we start with great principles and then it turns into the Tea Party, it gets co-opted, and then these systems are used against you. Every single thing we do with these systems is remembered. There is no greater potential to create a one world currency where all your economic activities tracked and traced and monitored for being inconvenienced than cryptocurrencies could be if they're designed incorrectly. And you very well, because of propaganda, could end up consenting to do that. If you live in the United States, you've already implicitly consented to suspending the entire US economy without any facts yet, just models and predictions and a few people without any public debate or counter arguments posted to the come there. And media didn't want to hold it accountable, so they're not there to protect you anymore. All right, that's the rant of the day. I just wanted to make it to give you guys a sense of where I sit. I'm not perfect. I'm not God. I could be certainly wrong. In many cases, I am. And this is just one man's opinion. And the whole point of what we're doing is trying to make my opinion equal in value to your opinion, and my beliefs equal in value to your beliefs. So if we accomplish this, then we have really changed everything. And this global order that has been constructed on the back of World War II to protect us will no longer be necessary. There's more to say about that. There's not all negatives there. I mean, we have nuclear weapons, we have genetic engineering, we have AI coming. Without some sort of global regulatory function, these things have the potential to end the entire human race. So there's a reason why you'd create a system like this. But the system is built on a lack of trust and faith in you as a person. It took your power from you. And what I'm trying to do is give it back, but I'm warning you that if we don't do it right, the very tools that we construct to give it back could be used to make it worse and take it from you. Or it could be used to enforce things that end up ending us all. So we have to evolve as a species, and you have to think for yourself. Don't take my word for it, just do the test and see if you've been propagandized and understand what Dunning-Kruger is, and work really, really hard at trying to get yourself out of those unpredictable thought patterns, wherever they may fall. Till next time, thank you much. Have a nice day.